Look, the South Carolina Gamecocks came off a pretty rough season. Okay. They missed a bowl game. Rough season. Spencer Rattler off to the NFL. I think Spencer Rattler, first of all, was one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the SEC last year. This guy was sacked an unbelievable amount of times in some of these games. I think specifically the North Carolina game, I think they sacked him 9 or 10 times. Unbelievable just grit and determination from that kid. And I feel like we saw that kid grow up a lot. But he's gone. He's going off to the NFL. You've got Sellers at quarterback. That I feel like I think he's ready to step up. Have you heard much about this Sellers guy?
I have. I've heard. I don't want to sit here and try to pretend I know his whole scouting report, but we'll break this team down after spring practice for sure. But I'm hearing good things about Sellers. I think that they feel pretty good about where he's at in his progression. I think that if they didn't feel good about where he was, then they probably were not going to be able to draw in James Coley before he took off for Georgia. So I think that there's some buzz around this quarterback, and there's some belief that he's gonna lead them to a pretty promising offense.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what Lenora Sellers can do. I like the prospect of him being able to use his legs. He's got some pretty good scrambling ability, from what I understand. I think that's going to be paramount for this offense. You got to be able to move around a lot, because I don't think this offensive line is going to be just amazing or anything like that. But they brought in another quarterback too, Robbie Ashford. So you've got Robbie Ashford kind of sitting in the wings. At least he's got some playing experience. Anytime you've got a running quarterback, you really need 2 running quarterbacks. Somebody to go in and run that system if your starter gets hurt, right? So I think you've got kind of like a 1A and 1B for the quarterback position at South Carolina. So I think that's a really good thing. Now, you lose some good wide receivers. You got Trey Knox in to play tight end from Arkansas. Trey Knox was a highly touted recruit. I feel like we haven't really seen him at his best. You got another tight end coming in, Joshua Simon coming in from Western Kentucky. Jaron Willis coming in from Ole Miss to play the edge position. So Eddie Lewis coming in to play wide receiver. So he comes over from Memphis. You got some pieces coming in. I feel like they've done a good job hitting the transfer portal hard. But look, it is South Carolina, and there's going to be some holes in this lineup, as Shane Beamer has got to figure this stuff out pretty quickly. So you start off the year with Old Dominion, and then you go to Kentucky, and then you got LSU. So those first 3 games, you got a couple of SEC games there, the 7th and 14th of September, and second game of the year there, you're going on the road to Kentucky, which will be pretty tough atmosphere the second game of the year. Everybody's going to be fired up over there at Kroger Field. So I suspect that'll be a good one. I'll have my peepers on that game for sure. But some of the bigger games of the year, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, back-to-back weeks there at the middle part of October, and then you've got a bye week before you go play your rival Texas A&M. Still can't figure out why they're rivals, but they are. And then you've got Missouri, and then you finish the year at Clemson. So that's November 16th. You got Missouri at home, and then at Clemson to finish out the year. South Carolina, over the last, 10 years, has had one of the hardest schedules in college football, just because of the mere fact that they had to play Georgia every year and they've had to play Clemson every year. So now you add in Alabama and Oklahoma to this. And LSU. This is a pretty damn tough schedule. What are your thoughts on this, and what are some games that kind of stick out to you? I barely mentioned the Ole Miss game.
I think Kentucky and South Carolina is a game in week 2 that I'm really going to be paying attention to. And playing tug of war there on the banner. But Kentucky, to me, they bring in Brock Vandagriff, and this isn't a Kentucky review, but they bring in Brock Vandagriff. They bring in some pass catching weapons. I think that they get an upgrade on the offensive side of the football this year. They've been a very tough physical team on defense, notoriously, under Mark Stoops, and I think that could be a really big win for Carolina. You're not going to know it in week 2 what kind of win that is, but both schools will be starting a first-year starter at quarterback, and unless Robbie Ashford ends up winning, but I think that this could be a very fun game to watch. Obviously, LSU, you've got to go into that game knowing you're playing upset, right? The good news is that LSU comes to Williams-Brice Stadium, and that's not a very fun place for other teams to play. So that stadium is going to be raucous. It's going to be a fun environment to be at. And if they get the upset, it could make Shane Beamer's career. Honestly, this would be a huge win for him for South Carolina. But Ole Miss this year, it's going to be very, very tough to beat. Alabama is still going to be tough. I know everybody's thinking that, Nick Saban's gone and this is the time to, go after Alabama and this is the time to beat them. They're still going to be a tough out, y'all. And South Carolina, if they beat Alabama, it is saying something for sure. Oklahoma is no pushover. I mean, the schedule lets up towards the end, but that the first 7 games there, that's pretty dang tough. That's a full plate for South Carolina. It's not as tough as it was last year, but that's still a full plate. No Georgia on this schedule. So I think that South Carolina feels like they finally got a schedule that is fair for them, because the past few years, really under Shane Beamer, they've had one of the toughest schedules in the country. And I think that they're going to have to hit this one out of the park. I'm not saying 10 wins or anything like that, but I think that, you could pretty much say that 8 wins with this schedule would be a successful year. And that should be what Shane Beamer is aiming for.
How many
I'm excited.
wins, you say?
8 wins. 8 wins is, I think, would be a very successful year. And in the new SEC, 8 wins is pretty dang good. That's trending up for South Carolina. That's going to be a tough mark to hit, but this is a team now under Shane Beamer that should be going bowling, pretty much year in and year out. I'm expecting Shane Beamer to have sort of a Mark Stoops effect in that, 8 wins might be the ceiling for them for now, but you're not gonna lose more than 5 games either, and that's kind of what I'm expecting from Beamer moving forward. To me, this schedule, Texas A&M could be really tough at the latter part of the year with Mike Elko kind of figuring some things out. I think that that's going to be a tough out. So that's one that I'm circling and saying, like, all right, can we win that game? Right. If you win that game, you got some momentum against Missouri. Right now you're looking at Missouri, where they at this point in the year, we don't really know, but you got to be looking at Missouri feeling pretty confident that you can win that game. And if you beat Missouri, you sure as hell feel confident about beating Clemson. So, the end of the year, after, I think the bye week is in a really good part of the year at October 26th, just before you go and face Texas A&M. The Texas A&M, if they can win that game, I think that they can domino and end the year undefeated, honestly. And that, or I say undefeated, end the year undefeated in those last 5 games. So go 5-0 to end the year, and that would get them really close to 8 wins already. There's definitely 3 more you can count up at the top. So that would that could make or break their season, honestly, to me.
Yeah. Well, as we were talking here, I wanted to look up the over-under win total, and as of right now, FanDuel, I believe this is FanDuel, says that the over-under win total has been set at 5.5 for the Gamecocks.
Yep. That sounds about right to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's LSU, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Clemson and Missouri. That's where this season is decided. I mean, obviously. And man, that's a tough schedule. Whew. That's got to be one of the toughest schedules in the country for sure.
Yeah, they've got 4 guaranteed wins, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, and Vandy's not going to be. I mean, they're no easy out for South Carolina. That's a losable game for South Carolina. They probably won't lose, but you know, Vandy has won some SEC games here recently and beat Kentucky, you know, and beat Florida. So
Yeah.
they're not exactly a for sure out anymore. Not for a team like South Carolina.
No, we can't take any wins for granted as the South Carolina Gamecocks. That's for sure.